All right, good afternoon, everyone. This meeting is called to order. We're not going to have a video feed today. We're having technical difficulties. Here it is, an audio recording. We are recording right now. Mr. Troman, has anyone signed up for public comment? Thank you. On agenda item 3, we have no cases to reconsider.
That is correct.
All right. On agenda item 4.
Nice.
Hey, walk up
I
song.
knew with enough time he would
Just
figure
keep
it
it-
out. Tax liability case.
Keep it going. Keep it going.
We have, that's a good selection.
It's a good.
It's a very
walk-up.
combative
That's a good
song.
walk up. Good walk up.
For the record, Hugh Daniel, Special Program Appeals. There are two tax liability cases on docket 46 and two tax liability cases on docket 47. The first case number on docket 46 is TD-24-045-0924. Commissioner Esparza,
Agree with the recommendation.
Commissioner Trevino,
I agree with staff's recommendation.
Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
The second case on docket 46 is TD-24-050-0924. Commissioner Esparza,
Agree with the recommendation.
Commissioner Trevino,
I agree with staff's recommendation.
and Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
That concludes tax liability cases on docket 46. The first case number on docket 47 is TD-24-034-0724. Commissioner Esparza,
Agree with the recommendation.
Commissioner Trevino,
I agree with staff's recommendation.
and Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
The second case number on docket 47 is TD-24-041-0724. Commissioner Esparza,
Agree with the recommendation.
Commissioner Trevino,
I agree with staff's recommendation.
and Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Thank you all. That concludes the tax liability cases on this docket.
Thank you. We have no fair housing cases under agenda item 5, no child labor cases under agenda item 6. Under agenda item 7, we have no wage claim cases on dockets 46 or 47 pulled for additional discussion.
That is correct. We have no fair housing or child labor cases. We have no wage claim cases pulled for additional discussion. However, you should have received the short form dissent list for docket 46 and 47.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on dockets 46 and 47.
I second the motion except for those cases which I am dissenting as reflected on wage claim short form dissent list for docket 46 and 47.
I agree with the chairman's motion, except for the cases in which I'm dissenting as reflected in wage claim short form dissent lists for dockets 46 and 47.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted. Let's now move to agenda item 8 and consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 46. Please proceed when you're ready.
Docket 46, first case is 3317161. Commissioner Esparza.
We should modify the AT decision. First, I don't contest the employer did not establish good cause for missing the AT hearing. Concerning the job separation, if viewed as a quit or discharge, the claimant should be disqualified from benefits. If viewed as a quit, after speaking with his manager about the incident, a coworker, the claimant was advised to go home pending the results of an investigation. Claimant thereafter failed to communicate with the employer after his job status and filed his claim for benefits. Since the claimant initiated the job separation when continued work was available, the separation was voluntary and without work-connected good cause. If viewed as a discharge, after he was involved in an altercation with a coworker, the claimant was repeatedly advised to leave the employer's work location. Instead of following the employer's instructions, the claimant refused. The claimant's continued refusal of a reasonable employer request constituted work-connected misconduct. As such, we should modify the AT decision. The employer did not establish good cause for missing the AT hearing. Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The AT decision is correct. The employer testified that it missed the AT1 hearing because its witness was not available to attend the hearing and assumed that someone else from the employer would attend. The employer gave no details about why this witness was not available or why someone else from the employer did not attend the hearing. Despite being granted a rehear to provide additional information about its non-appearance, the employer did not appear at the rehear. Therefore, the employer did not establish good cause to reopen the case. Regarding the job separation, the available evidence established that when the claimant arrived at work on 6/28 of 22, he was told to go home and that the employer would call him back after they investigated an incident from the day before. However, the employer never called the claimant back to work. Therefore, the claimant was discharged for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT Employer did not establish good cause for AT1, no misconduct, chargeback.
Employer did not establish good cause for AT1, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Short form dissent.
Case number 3620078, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant provided credible firsthand testimony, which was corroborated by a union representative, that she was given the option to resign or be terminated by the employer. Since the claimant was given the option to resign or to be terminated, the employer initiated the job separation. The employer provided no evidence regarding the issues that led to the claimant's separation, and the claimant denied that she engaged in any actions that could be considered misconduct. Therefore, the employer failed to meet its burden of proof, and the claimant was discharged for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
The AT decision should be affirmed. Claimant quit for personal reasons in anticipation of a possible discharge. In short, the preponderance of the credible evidence established that the only party who could fire the claimant was the school board. The school board never terminated the claimant, nor was that a guarantee to happen. Instead, the claimant quit for personal reasons of avoiding a possible discharge to appear on a record. Accordingly, the claimant quit without work-connected good cause, and the AT decision should be affirmed. Voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed.
Voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Have your short form dissent.
Case number 3623767, Commissioner Trevino.
This case should be reheard to determine what time the claimant submitted the appeal. The deadline for the claimant's appeal to the commission was October 10th of 2023. Commission records established that the claimant's appeal, which was sent by electronic correspondence, was dated October 11th of 2023 at 12 a.m. Since the claimant's appeal was dated seconds after the end of the appeal deadline, the claimant should be questioned regarding when the appeal was submitted in order to establish whether there was a delay in the electronic submission of the appeal. Rehear.
The claimant's appeal to the commission should be dismissed as late. Claimant's original appeal to the appeal tribunal had been dismissed as late in a decision dated September 25th of 2023. The deadline for a timely appeal to the commission was October 10th, 2023. The claimant's electronic appeal was submitted at 12 a.m. on October 11th on 2023, i.e. after the clock had passed midnight. That was the late appeal. Accordingly, we should dismiss the claimant's appeal to the commission as late, leaving in place the prior AT decision that the claimant's appeal to the appeal tribunal was late.
Deemed commission appeal timely, resubmit.
We do not have a majority vote. Mr. Trevino, you voted to rehear,
Rehear.
and the chairman has voted to deem the appeal timely and resubmit.
I'll agree with the chairman.
We will resubmit the case. Thank you.
Case number 3625782, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision should be modified. I agree that the claimant filed a valid claim for benefits. However, regarding the job separation, the claimant was discharged for violating the employer's procurement policy, but the claimant acted in accordance with her understanding of the policy by sending the information to her supervisor, since the transaction was in excess of $10,000. And the evidence established that the claimant's supervisor approved the transaction that led to the discharge. The employer presented no evidence that the claimant knew or should have known that she could not rely on her supervisor's approval. Therefore, the employer has failed to establish that the claimant's actions constituted misconduct connected with the work. Modify the AT, valid claim, no misconduct, chargeback.
The AT decision should be affirmed. Agree the claimant filed a valid claim. As to job separation, the claimant was fired for violating an employer policy related to procurement. The claimant was aware that she was not allowed to make any procurement transactions above a certain threshold. Nonetheless, the employer's evidence showed that the claimant sent the procurement to the employer's procurement team well beyond that threshold. Because the claimant violated the employer's known policy, her actions constituted work-connected misconduct. As such, we should affirm the AT decision, valid claim, misconduct, no chargeback.
Valid claim, misconduct, no chargeback.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
I have your short form dissent.
Case number 3630582, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is correct. The claimant quit his job due to derogatory racial comments made by his coworkers. The claimant reported this behavior through the proper chain of command, and the employer failed to address or resolve his complaints. Therefore, the claimant had good cause connected with the work for quitting, since the employer failed to offer any resolution to his reasonable complaints regarding the racial harassment he experienced. Affirm the AT, no voluntary leaving, bill reimbursing employer, void adequate response.
The AT decision should be reversed. The claimant quit due to dissatisfactions with working conditions. The claimant provided multiple examples of things he didn't like in the workplace, but ultimately he failed to provide the employer an adequate opportunity to remedy his concerns before quitting. As such, the claimant quit without work-connected good cause. We should therefore reverse the AT decision, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Read here to determine if the employer acted to discipline the other soldier before the claimant's resignation was effective.
I'll agree with the chairman.
Okay, thank you. We will rehear the case.
Case number 3636831, Commissioner Trevino.
The decision is not supportable. Both the complainant's second appeal and his sworn testimony provided that he went to the post office and mailed his first appeal on 7/11/23. Although this appeal was not received by the commission, his consistent and credible testimony established that he placed his appeal in the custody of the U.S. Postal Service prior to the appeal deadline. Therefore, the appeal should be deemed timely. Regarding the ability issue, the claimant's testimony made it clear that he does not have any medical restrictions that prevent him from working in the fields that he typically works. The claimant's only restriction is that he cannot lift heavy objects. However, the claimant's last worked in the management and has 20 years of management and sales experience and continued to look for jobs in these fields. The AT decision found that the claimant was able to work, but it concluded that it could not close the ineligibility earlier than 8/5/23 due to the claimant's late appeal. Since the claimant's appeal should be deemed timely, and since the evidence established that the claimant has always been able to work in his fields of experience, the ability, ineligibility, and resulting overpayment should be reversed. Reverse the AT, timely claimant appeal, claimant able to work beginning 1/1/23, no overpayment.
We should affirm the AT decision. The claimant's appeal was filed after the deadline. However, the AT properly took continuing jurisdiction 2 weeks prior to the date of the late appeal. As the claimant had no medical restrictions related to the types of jobs he had held for the past 20 years, closing the ineligibility was appropriate. Affirm the AT decision, the claimant filed a late appeal, ability not eligible, January 1st, 2023, August 5th, 2023 overpayment.
Timely appeal, claimant able to work January 1st, 2023 through August 5th, 2023, no overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Case,
Short form dissent.
case number 3668977, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the AT decision. The claimant was discharged for urinating behind a dumpster during a safety observation. The claimant admitted making this statement to the safety inspector during the observation. As a result, the employer discharged the claimant. The claimant now disputes having engaged in the behavior. He states that he made the statement to deflect attention from his failure to set out a safety cone when required. At best, the claimant failed to follow safety protocols and lied to the safety inspector. At worst, the claimant failed to follow safety protocols, and urinated in public. Under either scenario, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment, we should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant offered only firsthand testimony and denied the allegations of misconduct. While the claimant admitted to making a joke to another employee, he testified that it only joked and that he was not engaged in the action that he referenced. The employer provided no firsthand testimony to establish that the claimant engaged in the alleged action and failed to establish that the claimant's joke was egregious enough to constitute misconduct connected with the work, especially without any prior warnings. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
No misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Case number 3670579, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the AT decision. At the time of hire, the claimant was aware of the employer's requirements to obtain a commercial driver's license within 120 days of hire. Although the claimant was sent to an employer-authorized driving school, the claimant believed the school to be inadequate and did not complete the testing requirements for obtaining the license. Since the claimant was aware of his responsibility to obtain a CDL license, his failure to obtain the license within an allocated period constituted work-connected misconduct. As such, we should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
The AT decision is correct. Although the claimant failed to obtain a CDL within the 120 days of hire, as required to continue his employment with the employer, the evidence presented established that the trucking school that the employer sent him to provide completely inadequate training and had various safety issues. The complainant brought these concerns to the employer's attention, but the employer took no action to resolve the situation. The claimant was prevented from meeting the CDL requirement due to the problems with the trucking school the employer chose for him to attend. Therefore, it was properly concluded that the claimant's discharge was for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
Misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Short form dissent. That was the last case pulled for additional discussion on docket 46. You should have received the short form dissent list for docket 46.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 46.
I second the motion except for those cases which I am dissenting as reflected on UI short form dissent list for docket 46.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting as reflected in UI short form dissent list for docket 46.
Motion passes with the exceptions known.
We will move to docket 47.
Case number 3457304, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision is not supportable. It seems clear from the evidence developed at the rehearing that the wages in question were erroneously attributed to the named employer. Ideally, the employer that has the chargeback liability would be the employer that paid the wages. In this case, not only do we have the employer that is not properly chargeable with benefits, but the actual employer that paid wages has lost the benefit of the claimant's wages in its tax rate calculations for the intervening years. What should happen is that the tax department help each employer file amended quarterly reports to straighten out the wage credit issues. The only question is how far back in time our UI law would allow amended wage reports and recalculations of tax rates. Accordingly, I vote to send a memo to the Office of the General Counsel on that question and to have the case resubmitted on the basis of the additional information.
The AT decision should be modified. I do not contest that the employer established good cause for its failure to appear at AT1. However, regarding the chargeback issue, though the claimant may have performed work for another business, she was paid by the named employer, and the named employer reported wages for the claimant in the fourth quarter of 2018. The claimant was not separated from the named employer under disqualifying circumstances. Therefore, the employer's account should remain charged. Modify the AT, employer established good cause for AT1, chargeback.
Employer established good cause for AT1, no chargeback.
I'm sorry, could you repeat your vote, Mr.
The
Chairman?
employer established good cause for AT1, no chargeback.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
All right, thank you. I have your short form dissent.
Can I get 1 second? Would you, Chairman, please?
But he also asked for this memo. So.
Commissioner Sparsa.
I'm going to agree with the chairman's vote on that.
Okay,
I hope
thank
that
you.
clarifies that.
Case number 3584883,
Before we do
Commissioner.
that,
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
so he concurred with my vote. Did you record a short form dissent for Commissioner Trevino?
Short form dissent, ma'am. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you.
Okay, case number 3584883, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision is fully supportable. First, I agree that the claimant did not establish good cause for missing the AT hearing. Concerning the job separation, although the claimant had multiple prior warnings about performance and matters related to attendance, the claimant was terminated when he violated the employer's policy by not notifying the employer about his whereabouts and disappearing during a scheduled work shift. Since claimant was absent without informing the employer about his whereabouts, the claimant's actions arose to work-connected misconduct. As such, we should affirm the AT decision. The claimant did not establish good cause for missing the AT hearing. Misconduct, no chargeback.
AT decision is not supportable. Even if the claimant did not establish good cause for his failure to appear at the continuance at the AT1 hearing, the AT1 decision on the merits is not supportable. The employer testified that the claimant was discharged for failing to perform his job duties and disagreeing with coworkers, but no specific details or firsthand testimony was provided to support their allegations. Additionally, the employer failed to provide evidence of any written warnings given to the claimant, though they were required by the employer's policy. Therefore, the employer has failed to establish that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Modify the AT, claimant did not establish good cause for AT1, no misconduct, chargeback. In the alternative, I could agree to a ruling that the claimant established good cause for his failure to appear at the AT1 continuance or the continuance of AT1, since he called in before the hearing only 2 minutes after the hearing time due to a need to pick up his child from daycare and to resubmit the case for merits testimony.
Claimant established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
Case.
Case number 3633687, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is correct. The employer discharged the claimant because he allegedly did not complete an assigned job task as instructed. The claimant provided sworn testimony denying that he was insubordinate or that he failed to perform the task that he was instructed to complete. The employer did not offer any firsthand testimony regarding or supporting their allegations about the claimant's conduct. Although the claimant expressed some frustration with how he was instructed to perform the task, he completed the job as instructed, and merely displaying a bit of poor attitude, which is not accompanied by the refusal to work, is not sufficient to establish misconduct connected with the work. Therefore, the employer did not meet its burden of showing that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
The AT decision should be reversed. The claimant was fired for using inappropriate language and for refusing to follow instructions. The preponderance of the credible evidence established that the claimant used profanity when refusing to perform an employer-instructed task. The employer stated that it has a rule against using derogatory language, and the claimant's violation of this rule, coupled with his refusal to perform a job duty, constituted work-connected misconduct. We should therefore reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employee response.
Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Short form dissent.
Case number 3667949, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant accepted the job based on an offer letter, which listed his pay as including both hourly rate and unit pay. After several weeks of work, the claimant was told by the employer that his pay was just unit pay based, except for holidays, vacations, and sick time, which were paid accordingly to the hourly rate listed on the offer letter. The claimant continued to work for several weeks to determine whether he could make sufficient earnings based on the unit pay. But due to lack of available work, he was not able to do so and resigned. Since the claimant took the job based on an offer letter provided by the employer that was different than the pay structure he was ultimately provided, and because the claimant made a good faith effort to try the new pay structure once he was informed of the change, the claimant had good cause connected with the work for quitting. Modify the AT, no voluntary leaving, void chargeback.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant quit due to dissatisfaction with his pay. The claimant brought his concerns to the attention of the employer, and the employer provided the claimant an explanation about his pay terms. Thereafter, the claimant continued working for the employer for another 6 weeks, which equates to the claimant accepting the employer's explanation of his pay structure. As such, the claimant's resignation was without work-connected good cause. We should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, void chargeback ruling.
Voluntary leaving, void chargeback.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Short form dissent.
Case number 3673605, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the AT decision. The claimant was discharged for leaving her post without being properly relieved in violation of policy. The claimant received 4 hours notice that she would be required to stay after the end of her shift. For its part, the employer was working on finding a replacement to relieve the claimant. Despite this, the claimant left her post unattended, citing a need to pick up her child from school. There is no evidence that the claimant attempted to find an alternative solution to comply with the employer's request. This lack of effort may have stemmed from the claimant having submitted her resignation days prior. Ultimately, since the claimant abandoned her post in violation of the policy, she mismanaged her position of employment. Reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The decision is correct. The evidence established that the employer discharged the claimant for leaving her post prior to another guard relieving her. The employer had scheduled another employee to relieve the claimant's post at 2 p.m., which was at the end of her shift. However, that employee had already quit a couple of days prior and should not have been scheduled as the claimant's relief. When the employer gave the claimant last-minute notice that they did not have anyone to relieve her at 2 p.m. and asked her to work until 7 p.m., the claimant advised the employer that she could not stay an extra 5 hours since she had to pick up her child from school. Therefore, any failure to have the post properly covered was a result of the employer's failure to manage the schedule or to give the claimant any advance notice that she would need to work beyond her scheduled end time, rather than do any misconduct connected with the work, misconduct on the claimant's part. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
No misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Short form. That was the last case pulled for additional discussion on docket 47. We should have received the short form dissent for docket 47.
We accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 47.
I second the motion except for those cases which I am dissenting, as reflected on UI short form dissent list for docket 47.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases of which I'm dissenting is reflected in UI short form dissent list for docket 47.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted. This brings us to the end of agenda items 1 through 8. We'll take a short recess. This is agenda item 9, establishment of a late refund penalty rate for career schools and colleges.
The record, I'm Michelle Cranes with the Workforce Development Division. Texas Education Code 132.061B requires a career school, thank you, or college to pay student refunds within a 60-day period. Failure to do so requires the career school or college to pay a penalty. Section 132.061 also requires that the Texas Workforce Commission annually establish this penalty at a level sufficient to act as a deterrent to the retention of funds. The current rate of 250% has proven effective in ensuring career schools and colleges pay student refunds in the required timely manner. At this time, staff seeks direction on the establishment of the late refund penalty for calendar year 2025, requesting that it remain at the current annual rate of 250%. That concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
None here.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the career schools and colleges penalty rate for late refunds to students at the current annual rate of 250% for calendar year 2025 as recommended today by staff.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded, and the motion carries. This is agenda item 10, program year 2024, fiscal year 2025 allocations, distributions for the adult education and literacy program.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Cerna. For the record, Chris Nelson, Chief Financial Officer. This afternoon, you have before you the program year 2024, fiscal year 2025 adult education allocations. On July 1st, 2024, TWC concluded its procurement of the new AEL service providers throughout the state. Since then, TWC has recaptured amounts from the closed contracts of the previous procurement and added those amounts to the available funds for PY 2024, FY 2025 allocations. The total amount available to the allocation is $86,981,815, or 4.3% higher than the previous year's available funds. The packet includes schedules showing the funds allocated by method of finance and the amount allocated to each provider. In all instances, the amount of the allocation exceeds the amount signed on the grant agreements for the new procurement in July. Lastly, you have a schedule on the EL Civics funds made available to the new EL Civics providers procured as of July 1st, 2024. As with AEL funds, TWC recaptured $722,166 in funds from the previous procurement and have negotiated the distribution of those funds with the new providers. Due to the guidance from the Department of Education, the EL Civics does not run through the allocation process anymore, but through a statewide procurement. That concludes my remarks, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any comments or questions?
None here.
No, sir.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we adopt the program year 2024, fiscal year 2025 adult education and literacy block grant allocations in the amount of $77,859,649 as recommended today by staff.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is agenda item 11, additional funding for the Workforce Innovation Fund.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Cerna. For the record, I'm Joel Mullins with Workforce Development. On May 7th, 2024, the Commission approved staff's recommendation to create the Workforce Innovation Fund using $1 million in WIOA statewide funds. Through this program, boards could apply for grants between $25,000 and $250,000. TWC received 21 board applications for the Workforce Innovation Fund, all of which were reviewed and scored by a team of TWC evaluators. Based on the evaluation scores, the requested budgets, and the $1 million that was originally approved, TWC is able to award grants to the top 4 scoring applications. However, the first natural scoring break occurs after the fifth highest scoring application with only 0.75 points separating the 4th and 5th highest scoring application. This morning, staff recommends an approval of an additional $34,845 in WIOA statewide funding so that we can fully fund the top 5 scoring Workforce Innovation Fund applicants. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions?
No comments.
So this is a kind of flatten out the needs and benefits that the workforce boards can apply to, right? Is that kind of what we're doing? You mentioned, could you talk a little bit more about how it falls off at the 5th? That's natural scoring break.
Right, correct. Yes, the first natural scoring break is after the 5th applicant, since there's such a close.
Yeah.
Since the 4th and 5th one were so close in scoring,
Mhm.
and the based on the requested budgets, it's only that additional 34,000 that would be required to fund all 5. We thought we
Okay.
should go ahead and do that. Yeah.
I agree. Thank you. No questions.
How many total applications were?
At 21,
So we're funding, where we would fund 5 of 21.
correct.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the addition of $34,845 in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act statewide funds to the Workforce Innovation Fund as described in the discussion paper and presented today by staff.
I second.
It's been moved to second, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
So agenda item 12, waiver of 40 TAC, section 809.132H.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Reagan Miller with the Child Care and Early Learning Division. This morning, we're bringing forward staff's recommendation to waive a portion of the child care rules as allowed under the waiver provisions set forth in 809.3 of the child care rules. Specifically, we're asking for a temporary waiver of 809.132H, which addresses how Texas Rising Star programs who were terminated from the CCS program can re-enter CCS. With the passage of House Bill 2607, which made participation in Texas Rising Star mandatory for all CCS providers, we now have specific provider eligibility requirements. We've identified 13 providers at 7 boards who were allowed to re-enter CCS at the entry level. And as a reminder, once a provider has achieved Texas Rising Star certification, they're never eligible again to be an entry-level designated program. Entry level is only available for providers who are entering CCS for the first time. These rules are relatively new, and some boards incorrectly assumed that the entry-level designation was available to priorly certified Texas Rising Star programs who had been terminated from CCS. The misapplication of the rule was an accident as boards are getting used to these new provider eligibility requirements. And based on this, we are requesting this waiver to temporarily allow the providers listed on page 3 of the discussion paper to be considered a CCS eligible provider from the date they were incorrectly brought in at entry level through the date of their Texas Rising Star assessment's effective date. All assessments will be completed this week, and all will have an effective date of no later than December 1st. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
No comments.
No questions.
When did these new rules go into effect?
They went into effect a couple of years ago. This is the first time that we're seeing providers who are dropping out of CCS. When the rules were initially implemented, we grandfathered a lot of providers in at Texas Rising Star level. They had previously been Texas Rising Star. We think there was likely confusion because these providers never were entry level. They came in with mandatory Texas Rising Star as Texas Rising Star. I think there was some confusion because even though they had never been at an entry level before, they just weren't eligible based on the new rule provisions. So I think we've just got some growing pains as folks are now implementing these portions of the rules for the first time.
So I can appreciate that the providers themselves, the childcare providers themselves, it's not up to them to enforce our rules. but it would appear to me that there's a gross dereliction of duty on the part of either the contractors or the boards themselves on the enforcement of these rules. And I can't discern from your paper that there's any real sanctions that are going to happen to either those contractors or the boards, who are the people that failed to enforce the rules in the first place. I guess on some level, I can appreciate why we would hold harmless the providers themselves. I mean, they took the subsidy money in good faith. They believed, based on what they were told, that they were eligible for that subsidy money. They were not in fact eligible for that subsidy money. And I mean, I guess if you harshly applied the rules, we would have to claw that back so that some other child could have that money. I'm assuming there's a waiting list in most of these areas. But, you know, I kind of see why we would not want to place all the blame on that of the providers. There is some discussion in your paper about some sort of intent to sanction or something relative to the boards and their contractors. What weight does that have, and like, what's going to be the net effect of that?
So we would administratively, it wouldn't be a commission action, but administratively, we would place an intent to sanction on the boards that we identified on page 3. Through the intent to sanction, we would implement a corrective action plan, and that corrective action plan, as envisioned, wouldn't contain monetary penalties, but it would include requirements for them to strengthen all of their local policies and procedures and to ensure that staff have been trained so that they understand how to implement this portion of the rules. When a board is placed on corrective action, an intent to sanction, there are some potential implications to their eligibility for awards that might be approved by the commission. There aren't any specific monetary sanctions necessarily tied to an intent to sanction.
All right, any other comments or questions?
None here.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the temporary waiver of 40 Texas Administrative Code, Section 809.132H, as described in the discussion paper and presented today by staff.
A second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. We need to take a vote because I'm going to vote no. So Commissioner Trino, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Sparso?
Voted approved.
And I vote no. So votes 2-1. Motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right. Legislative report?
No time, no time.
No, not today. All right. An executive director's report.
Yes, sir. Two things very quickly. First off, I wanted to make sure that y'all were aware that the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development has requested our Civil Rights Division to provide some technical assistance to its counterpart in Arkansas. So we've shared plans and policies with the Arkansas housing program, as well as we'll be sharing helpful practices concerning intake and investigations, and then also our divisions, our Civil Rights Division's use of artificial intelligence to help streamline some of their work. So it's just a demonstration that the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has determined that we've got a program that's good enough to maybe help other programs out. So we're pleased with that. The second is I want to bring to y'all's attention something that I think we already know, and that is the fact that we've got a very qualified Chief Information Officer in Heather Hall. Heather's being recognized as the CIO of the Year by the Texas IT Leadership Forum, and she'll be recognized this Thursday at their meeting. We also have several other IT staff that are being recognized for leadership and innovation, but specifically Heather for her work that she's done leading us in our IT efforts. So I just want to make sure that y'all were aware of that as well, and maybe do a little shout out to Heather. And with that, I have nothing else to report.
Is there any other order of business come before the commission?
No, just congratulations to Heather.
Yeah, she's got a lot going on, so it's nice if she can take a little break to go and get recognized for it.
It's
Good job, Heather.
like there was an old episode of the Tonight Show where the guy was
Spinning the plates, yeah.
Yeah.
Except some of our technology is not even that advanced, so I think it's a lot harder job for everything that she does. I
Yeah.
agree. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, I move to adjourn.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn, and we're adjourned.